Good evening and welcome to tonight's Monroe City Council meeting. It's okay. This is the regular study session meeting for Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. The time right now is 7 p.m. I'm going to ask that Clerk Wyckoff please call the roll.
And establishing a quorum are council members Fulcher, Beaumont, Walker, Fisher, and Scarborough.
Thank you. Will the council please rise? Actually, Rudy, please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just a couple notes. First, we heard earlier today that Councilmember Gamble would not likely be here this evening. I'm just checking the attendees list to see if he came online. The answer is no. We also heard last week or a couple weeks before that Councilmember Hanford would not be here this evening. So unless there's objection, we'll consider both of their absences as excused. Seeing no objection, we'll go ahead and move on. The next item that I'd like to announce for the council's awareness is that discussion item number 8.2. Monroe 2044 future land use map with our planning manager, Kate Turtellow, is being removed from the agenda this evening. Unless there's objection, that change will stand. Seeing no objection, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, and that item would be public comments. This is a time for people to speak to the City Council in person on issues related to the City of Monroe, except those issues subject to a public hearing. When invited to speak, please approach the podium and state your name and association with the City of Monroe or area of residence. The timer will then be started. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. If you have comments this evening and your comments exceed the 3 minutes, you can certainly submit your comments in writing. If you're online and expected to provide public comment this evening, you can certainly submit your comments in writing. We do not take public comments anymore by way of Zoom. We're going to go ahead and see who has signed in. We first have Roger Evans, who signed in to speak. Mr. Evans, good evening. Again, if you could just state your name and association with the City of Monroe or area of residence. Once you're done, we'll hit the 3-minute timer. Good evening.
Roger Evans, Monroe resident, peer outreach in the City of Monroe.
Thank you. If you're going to sing a song, you can certainly remove the mic.
You don't want me to sing a
but
song.
But you've got 3 minutes for the song.
All right. Well, we're already 10 seconds in, so.
We're restarting the clock.
No, you're
Clark.
good.
Go ahead.
All right, good. A little humor makes the nerves. Greetings. I'm here to discuss the importance of programs in our community. I firmly believe that quality of programs has played a crucial role in shaping the present circumstances of my own personal life. I am not the only one. Many service providers have also benefited from well-structured programs in our community. I am passionate about programs because I wouldn't be here today without a program, literally not on this earth. If it wasn't for the supportive programs, it gave me the purpose and the dedication to help support others in their quest of changing their lives. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of programs. Currently, we have a motel program. It serves a valuable resource for us to help support individuals and families in need. The opportunities offered people a temporary residence while we work on an action plan to help them in their current situations. Following my remarks tonight, we have a guest speaker that is currently staying in the motel program that I really thought it'd be good to hear directly from him on how he is being able to be in the motel program, and we can start working on the things that he needs to work on. It's a process. There's no, cookie cutter that's going to help each individual, but without the stability of housing, it's really hard for somebody to focus on the next step. And those next steps are many, many different things. We're actually going Thursday to get his driver's license. He's done some incredible work in just a short period of time. There's no one program that's going to fit everybody's needs, but this is a program I really feel if ran the right way, it can really help people in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Perfect, okay. Sorry. The next person that we have who signed up to speak this evening is James Hudson. I'll go ahead and ask James Hudson to come forward, and again, please state your name for the record and also association with the city or area of residence. Thank you.
My name's James Hudson. I'm a Monroe resident. I'm in the hotel program. It's made a big difference in my life. Stability, place to be clean, look for work. There's all kinds of possibilities left for me. That's pretty much about it. Well, Roger's been a big help for me. Just want to say thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and I turn to the rest of the audience. Is there anybody else here this evening that would like to speak to the council? All right, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, and thank you for people who came to speak this evening. So the next item then would be under item number 5. This is announcements and presentations. We're going to start off with 5.1, Police Station Architectural Study and Preliminary Design. Final report with Chief Jolly. Chief Jolly.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak here. We have the team with us, and I'll introduce them in a minute. As you know, the Police Department project is the third and final stage of the campus remodel and rehabilitation. It's gone through several iterations, and for those of you who've lived in the community for some time are well aware of those, and as council members and the mayor, you've seen all of the background and the studies that have been done previously. Right now, just to give you an idea, and I'm not sure if this is in your packet, but this is a snapshot of our current facility that we operate in today. The only difference is that picture was taken in 1993, and we had a population of about 6,000 to 7,000 people. So we are very appreciative to the council and the mayor for allowing us to hire a professional firm to go outside, do an independent study, and determine what our needs are for our community. And with your support, we've gone through this project for how long now, Paul? Since October 10th. So it's been some while. You know, I've had two goals coming out of this. The first one was to build a contemporary facility that met the needs of the community and ensured that the police department could conduct best practices for serving the community. And the second one was that it was something that was an investment in harmony for the community that would last 20 to 40 years and be a good investment for the long term. So I think McKinsey, who we were fortunate enough to bring on board, has done an excellent job doing that. Brett's here with us. Kim is also one of the partners. I'm going to let Paul introduce them, but I'd like to thank Commander Paul Ryan for shepherding this project through. Many sleepless nights, many meetings, many packages, many presentations, PowerPoints, phone calls, and he has done a phenomenal job representing the city, our department, and this community. And I just want to extend a nod of appreciation to you. So take it from there, Paul.
So tonight's kind of exciting for us because this is a completion of a project, but it's really the first phase of kind of this exploration for us. So there is a point of celebration for me because we've essentially completed what we were asked to do back in October, which was consult with McKinsey. And McKinsey's been a great partner. They've been very judicious with the funds that were allocated for this particular project. We're under budget when it comes to the study, the architectural study at this phase of the project. And I'm just excited to have some conversation tonight about what we've learned and where we need to go moving forward. So without further ado, I will pass the mic over to Brett. Brett is the principal with McKinsey and can speak quite eloquently about the presentation. So here you go.
Thank you, Commander. Good evening, Mayor, members of council, city staff. Again, a pleasure to be here. And as stated, this evening's presentation is really a culmination of the work that we've been closely working towards over the past many months. So I'm excited to be here and appreciate that. As far as we'll walk through the summary and give you an idea and verbal explanation of the report and the work that we have since issued. Really, our primary focus was to essentially evaluate and understand your existing conditions, understand and forecast out the space needs of your facility and what your police department needs, not only for themselves, operation, but the community. And then use that information to identify potential sites and evaluation of assess fit for how we might apply those space needs and that development to both your existing site as well as potential alternative sites. So this evening, I'll just touch on those and give you a synopsis of what we've arrived at. First, if you go to the next slide. Our team itself, alongside McKinsey, included BC engineers, so there are mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers, as well as security and telecommunications. So they participated early on in the evaluation and observation of the existing facility. Wiggins Pre-Construction Services was our professional cost estimator, and so they prepared the professional cost estimates that are included in the cost forecast. And then, of course, we couldn't have done any of this without our stakeholder group, which included city staff and the police department, among many others as well. So a large thank you to them and our design team. Next. So just to give you a brief summary of the first step that we took, that was the facility assessment. The facility assessment really is intended to serve two primary purposes for us as design professionals focusing on public safety facilities. One is to review, experience, and understand the existing operations and how the police department itself operates within that existing facility. They usually generally showcases to us an idea of culture, of how they operate, the operational fundamentals and services that your particular department offers and provides your community. Secondarily, and as importantly, if not more important, is just understanding the nuances of your existing facility, a facility that's a number of decades old, and how it's currently, at what capacity it's able to support your operational needs. So we look at a number of different things. These all are representative of a host of key elements, and so I'll just speak to those. We look at building code compliance. So we do bring in on our structural engineers as well as our civil engineers, in addition to our mechanical electrical, as I indicated. Structural engineers are looking at it from a seismic perspective. These are category 4 essential facilities. For police facilities, it's a code requirement. So we perform an ASE 41, just a high level tier 1 analysis of how the existing building could and potentially perform in a seismic event. The intent there isn't to perform or make recommendation on the needs, but identify, how is the building up to standard now, and or would you have to do any sort of seismic upgrades to address that? Which in this case, if you were to do any major renovation, you would need to do seismic upgrades to bring it up to current seismic code for an essential facility. And I can answer any questions beyond that later in the presentation. We look at operational efficiency and effectiveness, the building systems and the lifespan. No different than many agencies that we work with. These older facilities, most of the municipalities, the departments, they do a fantastic, phenomenal job, facilities groups, keeping them up to snuff and operational to serve the community. But without a doubt, there's a host of deferred maintenance requirements and needs that simply come with older facilities. So some of which in this particular case are the mechanical units that are past their lifespan and as we understand it are actually slated for replacement. So those are some examples that are included within the report. We look at exterior public access and safety and security. We look at public parking and the capacity to support those needs as well as secure parking and the secure access and circulation in and around through the site. And then lastly, from an overall perspective of how the building is supporting the staff and individuals within it, we consider health and wellness, both the programmatic support functions, but also lighting, heating, and natural ventilations and so forth. And then lastly, safety and security is a huge proponent of these. And in conjunction with the department themselves, they conducted a Homeland Security assessment. So I'll turn it over to Commander.
Yeah, so back on December 7th, we had someone from the Critical Infrastructure Security Assessment Team with the Department of Homeland Security come to our police station, and they performed an on-site security assessment. Without divulging too many of the details of the vulnerabilities and deficiencies of our building, I can tell you that there are a number of life safety issues that could potentially be an issue at our police station. So as we go through this process, I can tell you our biggest priority is to try to remedy some of that, because I'm not sure that we will have a resolution to our building, and some of these life safety issues need to be addressed. So understand that over the next biennium, I think we're going to start to prioritize some of the deeper vulnerabilities that our police station has, but that's really just in an effort to increase the safety of our staff and our visitors in our current police station now. So
Next. So following that, essentially the building assessment, we use that information then to really guide our conversations with the department. So we go through a space needs assessment and programming. Effectively, I like to refer to this as creating the recipe book for the building. This is all the parts and pieces, everything that you need from a space and functionality and operational perspective that a modern law enforcement facility would require. So we use a couple of different tools to ascertain that. We go through a higher level visioning for goal setting and so forth with the overall department and staff. We use staff questionnaires that were issued to department staff to provide input and feedback with regards to operations, as well as the fundamental parts, support functions that they require. We also use that to help forecast and conversate over staffing forecasts for the department. We use space standards. There's a couple examples up here, both in furniture as well as standard functional requirements that we've used for the past nearly 3 decades and have honed over time for these types of facilities in conjunction with other standards, both national and state, through the International Association of Chiefs of Police standards and guidelines that help reinforce best practices and also provide a fundamental validation to our space needs program, so that we're right-sizing the program, right-sizing the spaces, and we're providing dedicated and the type of operational requirements that your department's going to need. In conjunction with that, to support that, we often, it's a reiterative process as we go through and we develop this. So one of the key elements that we discussed earlier, at the onset of the project, was a recommendation that the department considers facility tours. So it's all good and well to talk about space standards, and we bring examples and we bring photos and we bring floor plans and we discuss the parts and pieces of it. And then once we've done that, we're in a draft format, and then we put kind of put that into practice and have them review existing facilities.
yeah, so this was the field trip of the project, and fortunately we had a state of Oregon expert with us who helped coordinate some of our tours of some best practice facilities in the state of Oregon. We visited Salem, Albany, West Linn, Canby, Kaiser, and Oregon City. What I think the biggest takeaway that our group had on the tours was really identifying that a single story structure was the most ideal to a positive culture in a police station. When you start to build 2-story facilities, you start to get separation from divisions or departments within a police station. And so it's just a point of consideration that, and even locally, we've spoken with some of our law enforcement partners locally who really state the same, that a single story structure really helps facilitate a positive culture within a police station.
So the department, following their tours, they provided us feedback. We revised the program, made adjustments, and if you go to the next slide. The final document is actually a multi-page report this is just the cover page, but effectively we evaluated the program with a 20-year forecast. realistically, we're building in and planning for flexibility and adaptability of these types of facilities, so to hopefully and plan to support the department beyond that time. But for a 20-year forecast, we're looking at just short of around 28,000 square feet for all the parts and pieces of your police facility. In addition to that, we also evaluate parking, forecast parking for the public parking, as well as the secure parking for patrol and operations. And that information leads us to the next step, if you will. Gives us the information. So this leads into one another. We build off each step as we go through this process. So effectively, that information is fundamental and critical to identifying sites. At the last council meeting I was here, we went in and we discussed these next few slides and topics, but essentially it gave us an understanding of exactly how much the building square footage would need, whether it's a single story, it's a 2-story, and then how much site availability we may need for this particular project for the secure parking, and also offsets and security and so forth. Working closely with city staff as well as our in-house land use planners, we identified 6 potential sites that had the site availability within the city limits to consider. So those sites, including the existing site, that's site number 1. So we considered site North Kelsey retail site, school district, football field, north existing Walmart, west existing Walmart, and the school district baseball field. If you go to the next slide. Oh, actually, excuse me, you're right.
Yeah, the one thing I did want to point out on this is we really want to make sure that our community's not assuming that the police station's going to be at one of these locations. We're still very preliminary in this process. And we put a note on this specific slide that just because we explored these parcels does not mean that the parcels are even for sale or that the city's even exploring a purchase and sales agreement. So I just wanted to kind of explicitly call that out and make sure that that's not an assumption in the community.
So as we evaluated each of these sites, the goal was to narrow them down to the top 2 to 3 sites to then test fit the program and site design onto. So a few of the things that were critical in those conversations. So how do we narrow those down? Through those conversations with city staff and the overall stakeholder group, first and foremost, we're considering the capacity for the individual sites to support the program. That's fundamental. That's how we arrived at these potential 6 sites. We look at the proximity and location within the city. An element is highest and best use, which as we evaluated the retail site, it was determined that, aside from it having some fundamental security concerns or issues with regard to how we might develop that for a law enforcement site, perhaps not the highest and best use for the city. So that site actually fell off. We also look at availability and ownership. A site that we were considering was the North Walmart site, if you will. At the time, the fire district was considering that site and was looking at that. So the availability of that site was in question. So that particular site, among a few other things, that site fell off. We look at allowed use, support of law enforcement, and then we look at cost of development, potential costs. We're very early on in the stages, so we did some rough order magnitude. The site that we were calling the West Walmart site. Essentially, it's a site the city owned. It was previously a landfill element. Simply the cost of development of that particular site ruled that site out. So that's where we narrowed it down to sites 1, 3, and 6. Next. So as presented at the last council session,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilmember.
You say 1, 3, and 6. 3 and 6, I believe, are owned by the school district. Do we have some sort of inkling of whether or not they're willing to sell or trade?
So again, I would encourage the council to focus on the space aspect of this presentation rather than the site, because those are ever changing. But to answer your question, the mayor and I met with the superintendent, and I don't think at that time it was on his radar or there's any pressing thought to sell that or.
It would be a dollar figure consideration at some point, I'm sure.
I will share that when we met, that they were talking about working on a facilities plan. They do that every once in a while with the school district. And as part of that, they'll be evaluating the different properties and what they can be used for around town and within the school district, so.
So this slide represents a summary of those three sites. So you have your existing site that is represented as a two-story facility in order to minimize the footprint and maximize public parking as well as secure parking. A few of the things that would be next steps should you move forward with the existing site that would be a consideration that we touched on at the last meeting would be consideration of potential relocation of public works functions, perhaps off-site. That was an element, all intended to create available space to increase your secure parking, as well as open up availability for public parking as well. So we're about 20 stalls shy there. Another element would, of course, be to further evaluate the parking arrangement and so forth south of the building there, or just plan south of the building. Other elements that currently is not included from a cost perspective, but would be a consideration for next steps is relocation of the park storage building that is currently on site. That would be demolished in order to accommodate the new footprint as well as secure parking. We do need to expand the impound lot as well on site. So again, that would be complementary to relocation of potential existing functions on the public works portion of the site to allow for that. And then lastly, an element from a costing perspective that would need to be evaluated and considered would be relocation of existing operations of the police department. So really somewhat complementary. You guys are going through that with your existing administration building, so you're very, very familiar with that. So those are some aspects of Site 1. Site 3, the football field, this is representative of a single-story facility and surface parking. The site is in itself. Next steps regarding this site would be further consideration, evaluation of the planned north street and right away there to come through and create that future connection with regards to the overall connection between those major streets. And then also just future steps for this site, as well as performing a site survey later down the road, as well as geotechnical for earthwork and geotechnical understanding, which influences your seismic and structural. Those aspects would also be considerations for next steps for your Site 6, so the baseball field. So what's represented in Site 6 that we covered in more detail at the last meeting was that roadway there, that connector. So further site discussions and involvement, particular to Site 6, would be conversation with the utility company regarding their easement plan. I'll call it southwest, if you will, onto the connection there, right where the corner of the church lot, and then coordination and conversation with the church property itself as an adjacent neighbor, and as well as Plan North properties for access and potentially of their street to the alleyway. So those are next step considerations for each of the particular sites. Should you move forward with any one of them, all of those do come into play as far as what was considered with the overall cost forecasts. So as far as the cost forecasts go for each of the individual sites that's represented there, the construction cost itself includes your hard construction costs for your contractor to build your property, as well as that's your sales tax and your owner's contingency is included within that construction cost there. The total project cost includes your additional soft costs. So your soft costs in your project are going to be anything and everything outside of your construction costs, which is going to include your architecture engineering fees, your specialty consultant fees. It's going to include your permitting, your fixtures, equipment, and furnishings, as well as a number of other aspects and additional contingency to cover your overall total project cost. So when we forecast project costs, depending on how you guys move forward from a funding mechanism, you can't complete your project with only your construction costs. So you really want to ensure that you're accounting for all of your potential costs for the project, much in the way that you're likely doing for your city hall, your city administration building. So With that, you can see those reflected there. And as indicated, just those next level cost considerations that indicate for site one, there are some additional costs that would need to be considered for that particular site option that would come into play. Sites 3 and 6 do include a forecast for site acquisition. That would be a negotiated element with the school district, but we are carrying an allowance in there for the potential for that. With that, that leads us to our final slide, which is simply next steps.
So that brings us to next steps. And Jody, I'm actually going to have you go back one slide because this really kind of guides part of our discussion. So on site one, this was really one of our aha moments during this study. Was we really kept the scope of this project to those imaginary lines that the police department is currently occupying, which is why you don't see that we have an option before you that the police station is taking pieces of the municipal campus that are currently utilized by Parks and Public Works. And so one of the options before you tonight is to allow staff to pursue an additional study that would really examine the impacts to the Parks Department and the Public Works Department if the police station started to move a little bit further south on the municipal campus. So that's one option that we're presenting tonight that would kind of keep this momentum going. The other option that we have in the agenda bill is to allow staff to pursue a potential land acquisition if the opportunity presented itself and was a benefit to both the city, the community, and the department. And I think we can all say that we don't know what land may become available, and there may be something that's too sweet to pass up. And so we wanted to present options that give us a little bit of the flexibility to pursue a path that really meets the needs of our department and community. So with that, I think I'll open it for questions.
Thank you. So can we go back to the three? I just want to get clarity on one thing. You mentioned look at adjusting the building south. Did you mean downward on the map? Or did you mean south, which would be to the left?
So site one, well, I would describe it as south, which would be to the left.
Perfect, thank
Yep.
you. I just wanted to get clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Scarborough.
Okay. It seems to me with your thought process of you want a one-story building, option one is a two-story facility, correct? Or does that mean unless you can move south?
Because we haven't really examined what moving south looks like, I'm hesitant to say that that'll solve our problems. You're correct that it's currently preliminarily designed as a two-story. And I would tell you that at least to our eyes, it feels a little crammed in spaces. And so I do believe there's an interest to at least expand slightly, and whether it's moving parking to a different area of the municipal campus to allow for a little bit more footprint to grow to the west, to that to the fire and police access drive, that could potentially be a problem solver. So there's options, but I don't know that we have those answers yet.
Okay, so kind of what I'm reading, maybe I'm reading between the lines. It sounds like option 6 and 3, we don't have the cost for land if it's even going to be for sale. Option 1 is an existing footprint plus. It may or may not be a one-story building. It's also the least expensive of the three as it is. Am I right?
Yeah,
I mean-
but I would qualify that to say that there are unknown impacts to the Parks Department and Public Works Department that are not included in the total project cost. So potentially the placement of a new park shop or parking for the Public Works or I don't think this would affect the decamp facility, but there's areas of that, those particular departments, to relocate them would be a cost added to this.
And if I could clarify, Councilmember Scarborough, that's one of the reasons when we go to the last slide, that one of the recommendations here is that council allow us to look at redesigning on site number 1. If we go back to the slide again, and you take a look at site 1, and I'm starting to be a planner, is that okay? Everybody okay?
Yeah, you want a pointer?
Only if it's crayon. When you're looking at it, you can see that what they did was they left parking where it is here. And you see how this parking has been realigned because of the rear parking. So they went with an assumption that they're going to keep the parking where it was. And so you've got all this white space right here, right? So the thoughts are, among other things, other ways that you can really adjust the parking right here to give a little bit more space on building or meet some of the security requirements and safety requirements that they're talking about. There's also an interest in maybe seeing as part of doing additional design and sort of study work around this, whether or not they can realign some of the parking right here so they can then nudge out that way. And they were talking south also, and we hadn't talked about south, which is why I had to clarify, because this is the bottom of the screen, so sometimes you think south, but no, he meant south, this way. So it sounds like there's an interest in seeing what else they can do in this direction. And so one of the things that I had mentioned with the staff is that I used to live over here in the duplexes, and coming from a land use background, it seems kind of weird having those industrial uses from the campus right next to us within the residential area. And what is it that we can do with some of the more industrial uses and stockpiling height on the site to maybe locate those somewhere where it's more industrial, like industrial park or something like that, and maybe find another way to reallocate the parking nearby, do something with a 2-level structure to, it might still be 2 levels, but maybe it's a better arrangement. So that's one of the things they're asking for is, in addition to continuing to keep the option open, in the event that another opportunity comes up for land acquisition, that we would go ahead and look at doing some redesign work and bringing that back to the council. I'll go over to the microphone. The other thought is also that when it comes time for you to talk with the public about funding this, that these are going to be some of the questions that the community might be asking you, is what else did you look at to keep it on site? Because as you can see, the price difference is substantial. And we went through this exercise. Is that me? Oh, it's you. All good. I like what I do. But we went through this sort of exercise when we did the municipal campus also. So we looked at offsite, tried to figure out what worked. We realized that, oh my goodness, it was going to be really expensive offsite. And then so we started looking at onsite and what we could do. So we're following a similar process. Thank you. Councilmember Scarborough, you still have the floor, but before I give it back to you, I want to make certain that the staff concurs or doesn't feel the need to clarify anything I said, because I know I can get things wrong sometimes. And I did not have my crayons to make me more intelligent about it.
No, we've had a lot of thoughtful discussions, and I think that you summarized it well.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilmember Scarborough, and then we'll go to Councilmember Walker. That's it. Okay, Councilmember Walker, go ahead. And then Councilmember Fisher. I was going to call you Hanford because I looked at the wrong sign. What, did you have your sign? That was your flag?
Yeah, Hanford. It's really
okay.
spreading out.
I'm sorry. I thought it was Jake's. It was Kev.
No, Jake is also going multi-screen over here.
Okay, but so
It's bringing a standing desk.
I just want to clarify.
Command center.
Who had their flag up that it was Jake. Okay. Okay, so Jake then Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for the presentation and thank you for the amount of work that you guys have put in over the last few months. Just for my first go around, I just have some questions for clarification. What kind of limits did you say there were on improvements before seismic improvements would have to be made as well?
So as far as seismic improvements go, the effectively existing building as it currently stands meets code at the time it was designed. If you were to do a renovation, which was part of our initial consideration, simply the building footprint couldn't accommodate, that's kind of where we stopped. But if you were to do any sort of major renovation or interior upgrades to the building, it would trigger seismic upgrades to your existing facility. So what those would equate to would really, those would need to be determined by next level discovery. But essentially, what you can expect is most likely perhaps upgrades to your lateral system for your shear walls, attachments and restraints to your roofing joists and your attachment to your structural walls. It's a masonry building, so consideration into potentially reinforcing those masonry walls, depending on what the lateral or the reinforcing was done at the time, may be prudent as well. All of that would be determined under next level study if that were to occur, in order to bring it up to today's current seismic requirements. So we've not done that level of detail design, so that we don't have the exact details, but that should give you an idea of what we experience on facilities similar to this. Yeah, does that, do you have any other?
That is perfect. I was trying to get an idea of even if we were to try to keep band-aiding or bandaging, I don't know which one to use, some of these problems, it sounds like we could hit that point pretty quickly, and I assume that those seismic upgrades would be very high numbers as well. Sort of related, has there been any discussion around what would happen to the existing space and the existing building if there was to be a relocation? Because that's kind of an interesting idea about all of that campus space that would be open.
The short answer is no. We haven't really evaluated what the shell could be available for it. I think that potentially is another element to this is if we were to move off site, what benefit could that building provide to the city or community? Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking through is if we did look into pushing further south to keep the facility on campus, on its existing campus, you could start to break up kind of the public works and parks dynamic. And I think that could lead to the same kind of problems with separation or issues with unity and communication if you had half of public works being in Fryland's industrial. Like, in other words, you'd have to start to kind of piecemeal out some of those departments. So that would be one of my concerns with, or I guess not yet a concern, but one of my curiosities about the idea of expanding the footprint on the existing campus if it means an imposition into the existing public works facilities, just because all that to say, I guess you can have trickle down effects on culture either way with either public works or police. So yeah, that's I guess thank you for the clarification.
And I will say, I think what you're articulating is support for the additional study, because that's essentially what it's going to show us is what are those impacts to parks and public works.
Thank you. I meant to add that on the end of my sentence.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
And Councilmember Walker, one of the things, because I hear that also, as I was thinking through the potential changes there, one of my interests in this study is to see if, like I said, those sort of light industrial things like the stockpiling of materials could be moved off-site, in which case you could still maintain the vast majority of the staff on site. You know, they could still muster there and everything, but their pipes and wood and dirt and sand, maybe some of the larger trucks are parked off-site rather than on-site. So
that makes sense.
That's kind of what the thought process there. Think more equipment and supplies rather than human beings being moved. That's kind of what I had in my mind. But again, to the commander's point, that's one of the reasons why this study would be done. See if it's even practicable. You know, is it practical and capable of being accomplished? And how does that affect budget? How does that affect culture and everything?
Awesome. I would say my fear of it affecting Monroe culture is there wouldn't be a Kubota going down 154th most days of the week.
You know, you might get more Kubotas if it's over in the industrial park.
That's true.
They need to
no, that's
connect
what I
the
mean. It's
maintenance.
going to Lake Ty. I love yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fisher. I know I should clap twice to make life easier.
There we go. Jake pretty much said what I was planning on saying. I almost feel like Parks and Public Works needs to be sitting up here with you guys to kind of go through all of this. The only thing I think of is you were talking the police station lasting 20 years or more, right? where are we at in 20, 30 years with Public Works and with parks? Like in 20, 30 years, is this property big enough for all of you anyway? So I think now is a really good time, as I will articulate. I think we should keep going with this study. I think we have to make a decision whether Parks and Recreation and Public Works stays there and you guys leave, or you evict them and you guys stay, and we figure out kind of where we're going to put them. But I'm sitting here looking straight down behind you guys too, the guys back there, and curious, and curious what they think also, as far as moving. And there's a fairly new building there, right, for Public Works, and whether or not you guys would just take that over, and then we would just rebuild somewhere else on another piece of land. I don't know if it's easier to find a piece of land for Public Works and Parks, or if it's easier to find a piece of land for you guys also. But I think just my main point is just looking 30 years ahead, and it feels like we don't have enough room in that piece of dirt there to have everybody anyway. So if we are able to make the move now, then it would probably be appropriate.
Thank you, Councilmember Fisher. Administrator Knight?
I want to thank both Councilmember Walker and Councilmember Fisher for asking about Parks and Public Works, because we have obviously had internal conversations about, what's the most appropriate next step in order to discern, following the last council meeting where council expressed an interest in looking at the existing site. And so the proposal to do an additional assessment is actually supported by all of the departments, because I think we do want to better understand kind of how we're using the existing site currently, and how can we potentially, move the puzzle pieces around in order to make everybody fit. To that point, it may be at the end that the assessment says one or more need to move, but then the assessment would also take a look at, where that would be. I think that the reason why we have a two-part recommendation tonight for council's consideration is because I do think that there are some other options for us that might get exactly what everybody wants. And that's the reason why we want to leave the door open for continued discussions about where we might be able to secure property. And I think together, this is a really great two-pronged approach, which will allow us to kind of methodically move forward. Because I do think at the end of the day, regardless of what decision we make around the police facility itself, at a time when we have to go out to the voters and ask for additional funding for a building, because I think at these price points, that's really our only option eventually. We're going to want to be able to answer the question from the public, the same question that you're asking here tonight, which is, did you look on site? Could you fit this on site? And we're going to want to be able to say, we studied, we evaluated, and this is the outcome of that. And that's the reason why, again, we're looking for council direction on the two questions that are in front of you this evening.
Thank you. Councilmember Fulcher? I saw your flag going up.
Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah, you clearly asked us one question and we're answering the second one. So I think that we're all kind of looking at the same thing. We see that there's these options, but we know there's so much more. So I am fully behind looking at other options, other ways to look at our option one. I have the same concerns as my fellows here. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Any other council members? Councilmember Beaumont, you haven't spoken yet.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. I think that we need to look down the road, way down the road, and some of these sites, we need to follow the growth. Where are we growing in the city? Where are our houses going? And where would be the best place to have you so that you're centrally located to respond to citizen needs and things like that? That's what I think about too, is where would you be able to get in and out of easily? Maybe it is up on Kelsey, maybe it's in some of these other areas. So when I read through this, I was thinking, let's look way, way down, because we've grown what? Chief Jolly, you were just saying, what did we double in size tripled in size from early 90s? Yeah, so I mean, we have our projections, but that's what I think about too, is let's look way down the road. If we're gonna do it, let's do it right. And let's get the coverage that we need for all the departments, including Parks and Public Works. Thank you.
Thank you. So it sounds like I'm hearing consensus from the council to go ahead and work on some additional design work using site number one. And I think I'm hearing from council also to yes, it's okay to keep the door open to look at other properties. Okay, if there's no objection to that, we'll consider that our direction. All right, thank you. Councilmember Walker, did you have something additional? I just saw your flag.
I just wanted to give kudos to Chief, and I think I may have said it before, but this reminds me of the old idiom about good on a man who tends to the tree whose shade he may never sit in. I think it's really cool that you're looking out for our community in the future and our future police department and looking after this project. So appreciate you, Chief.
All right, thank you very much. All right, and thank you very much, team, for bringing this forward. All right, next item on the agenda then is announcements and presentations, item 5.2. This is East County Motel Voucher Program Report Out with Human Services Coordinator. Okay, thank you. Adams. And friends.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Monroe City Council members. We have now come to the first round of funding for the Emergency Motel Voucher Program completion as of June 30th. And we would like to share some of the quantitative and qualitative results from the program so far. And then also be available to answer any questions that the council may have. I have with me here Galina and Natasha from VOA, who can speak specifically to some of the program highlights and again, answer any questions. This item came to the council first on December 12th, 2023 as an acceptance of grant funding. And then again on February 20th, when council first previewed these contracts. The award was for $592,192 with the City of Monroe as the fiscal agent. These funds came from the federal government to Washington State, through the county, to the City of Monroe, and were contracted with VOA. The contract was executed on March 28th, 2024, and concluded on June 30th, 2024, and currently there are 45 people being housed by VOA from the first round of funding that was made available. This represents a total of 36 households. 2 households representing 6 individuals have moved from temporary housing into stable housing as a result of this program. And another 1 household will be moving into their home very soon. And with that, I would love to pass on to Galina to share a little bit more.
Good evening. Making difference in people's life is very rewarding, right? Positive difference. And this hotel project truly makes difference in people's lives. So with this project, they're being running only for a couple months, from end of March until the end of June. We were able to enroll many families and significantly impact their future and their positivity and hope. This program provides clients with the stepping stone to the next level of self-sufficiency. Many clients that we have served, 6 of them had domestic violence situations, and they were able to escape the domestic violence situation just because of this program. Many clients have health issues. Specifically, 2 clients had diabetes, and they were surviving on the street and experiencing a lot of trauma due to stolen medication and their stolen needles, and they were not able to complete the doctor's appointments, being exposed to all this vulnerability. One of the clients that we serve with the program has a terminal illness, thyroid cancer, and just the ability for this person to rest in a hotel and be able to attend doctor's appointment and be able to participate in the treatment gave him enough strength to get hope. And they're also participating in case management and looking for future options for permanent housing as well, despite their diagnosis. We have a client who has their legs amputated and been surviving on the street for quite some time on a wheelchair, being afraid that the wheelchair gonna get stolen or parts gonna be destroyed. And the hotel gave this person opportunity to just rest and again, have peace, quiet, and focus on the next step. We have several clients that finally, after moving into a hotel, were able to wrap their minds around to consider treatment as an option for themselves. And they enrolling treatment now, and that for sure we know this would open a lot of great opportunities for them. Getting into a treatment program when you're surviving on the street and surrounded with that environment, it's not easy. So hotel gives the option to many people to change their mind and focus on the next step for themselves. We have one older gentleman that working towards assisted living. It's an older person working with Homage Senior Services, and the time spent on the street really affected his health and his ability to think and care about himself. So another success that I can share, there's clients that are able to obtain employment, and several clients, particularly we have 8 clients that got part in full-time jobs during the program enrollment and during the services that we were providing. One of them is working full-time now at Fred Meyer, and another client was able to get a job as a packer at the chef store, and in turn, this opportunity gives them a chance to obtain permanent housing. So while they're in a hotel, they can take a shower, they can rest, they can wake up in the morning and go to work. And for many clients also, take care of themselves and focus on job interviews and apply for jobs. It's really hard to commit to those kind of goals when you literally homeless on the streets. So this project gives a lot of hopes and opportunities for people that we may not believe had hopes and lives, and something happened, and then everything got destroyed and they ended on the street. So this project gives them opportunities to just get back on track and work towards their permanent goals for their stability. I want to share a story. We changed the names for the clients for privacy. I want to share the story of Maria, 18, has been homeless for the past 2 years after a domestic violence case between her parents that forced her family to fend for themselves on the streets and whatever else they could find. Neither of her parents were able to take care of her and ensure that she was able to attend school, have shelter, or even eat daily. Alone on the street, without the protection of loving parents or home, she was exposed to theft, drugs, abuse, and many other vulnerabilities that affect her life. She became pregnant at the age of 17, still in high school. And she managed to graduate high school. She got the high school diploma from the Sultan High School this year. While in high school, she gave birth to a beautiful blue-eyed baby girl. Having my daughter saved my life. I didn't care much about myself or anything else because being homeless sucks, but I didn't want to be homeless with my baby. My daughter is 6 months now. We have been homeless for many months with her, and now she's safe, and thanks to the hotel, she can crawl around. And imagine 6 months old trying to crawl in a car. So that's the life-changing stories that we're talking about. Maria's boyfriend, John, baby's father, also trying to support the best he can. He's 21 and he takes a lot of pride to provide for his family. When his worker asks like if they need diapers or anything else, he's trying to say like, they both program participants on the program and really trying their best to take care of their own needs before they ask for help. Maria is eager to learn, explore, and she's shifting the mood from surviving to looking into the future, looking the future for herself, for her young family, for their baby. And this housing program, short-term housing, gave her the opportunity to look into this future. She's still in a hotel, and we hope with continuation of the program, she'll get a great opportunity to move to a permanent housing unit. We were able to house 8 households this far, and we really looking forward to continuing the program and continue impacting people's life. And Natasha will share another story.
This is the story of Patricia. Patricia, 39, enrolled in the motel voucher program. She has lived a hard life since she was a child. With most of her family battling addiction, physical abuse, and homelessness, it became the established norm for her, and she fell into it as well. She became a single mother of 4 children. 1 is school age and 3 are under the age of 4. She's been trying her best. She stated, because of my past, I felt unhousable, random income here and there and nowhere to live, always going from one place to the other. I kept hitting barriers because of my choices. She became homeless in Monroe when her lease ended because she was not able to afford to pay for housing for herself and her children. She and her children were on the streets for at least 6 months before they enrolled in the motel voucher program. She actually tried so hard to protect her kids. She's searching for places to keep her kids safe at night. They're sleeping in a 4-door sedan. They were parking all over the place, and she's trying to avoid any of the encampments or anything that would expose her kids to things that she had been exposed to as a child. And she said, I finally came to my senses and got to work working on myself so I could be better for my kids. Patricia spent months looking for work and doing what was needed to connect to resources, and she was finally given the opportunity to provide her children with safety and shelter with the motel voucher program. And she told her case manager, you don't even know how tremendous of an opportunity and help this motel program was. Her 3 young, this is like from the case manager, her 3 youngest came to check into a motel with her. The 3 children dropped everything they were holding in the lobby in complete amazement that they were going to be staying there. Upon going into the room and seeing it, the children, they all ran, they jumped on the beds, their excitement, and they exclaimed in pure joy, yay, we get pillows, we get to take a bath tonight. In April 2024, with the assistance of the motel voucher program, this mother and her children were able to move into their own home. Their quality of life improved drastically because they were able to receive what they needed from the motel voucher program to help keep the children safe while they worked towards looking for housing. She says that her children are much more happier now and they have a home and stability, and she gives a lot of credit to the motel voucher program for giving her the assistance that she needed to get to that point.
All right, so with that, we're happy to continue the discussion and answer any questions that the council members may have.
Thank you. Do the council members have any questions or comments at this point on this presentation? Go ahead, Councilmember Scarborough.
Thank you for your report. Thank you for the stories. They're really heart-wrenching, and it's nice to think that you helped one, instead of focusing on how many we weren't able to help, we get to focus on, or we should focus on, the 1 or 2 or 3 that we did help. It reminds me of there's a card where a lady's walking down the beach and she's picking up starfish and throwing them back out in the ocean because they washed up on the shore. And somebody came up to her and said, how come you're doing that? You're not going to be able to get all of them. It won't make any difference. She said, it makes a difference to this one. Threw out in the ocean.
Thank you. Councilmember Beaumont.
Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate these stories. One of the things that I was thinking as I was reading through this is Maria, I think is her name. And at 16, she left home or was kicked out or whatever. She started this journey of misery because her mom and dad were the DV factor there. It wasn't an abusive partner. And so often with DV, we think of, it being the wife against the husband, husband against wife, partner against partner, adults. And in this case, it was parents that created that environment that made it inhospitable for her. And it just reminded me of the variety of situations that people find themselves in that require help. And this one line where I think this is Patricia said, because of my past, I felt unhousable, random income here and there and nowhere to live, always going from one place to the other. I kept hitting barriers because of my choices. So she knows that she has made some choices that created this situation, but this is a choice that we are giving her to change it. So thank you for this work.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Fulcher.
Thank you for the stories tonight. That was great. And for your comments, you guys. I have some questions though. When it comes to the program, what's the accountability look like? How does that play out? Because my other question that goes along with it, which you'll probably be able to answer both at the same time, have we had people who've had to leave because they have not participated in the way they're supposed to? How do you monitor that? And might as well add another question in there. There's two of you here. Are you the only two who are overseeing this program? How many people do we have? Because I think clear communication needs to be absolutely part of this. So are you two able to do it if it's just you two? How much checking up can you do on people? Okay, go ahead.
There's more than two of us. I'm the Executive Director of Housing Department with BOA, so I don't do hands-on services one-on-one with clients, but I used to be a shelter case manager, rapid rehousing case manager, eviction prevention program manager. I worked with Dispute Resolution Center for several years to gain the knowledge how to, not to avoid the conflict, how to address the needs of each party to resolve the situation. And there's you mentioned there's always choices. We make choices and we are responsible for those choices. So the choices we make to work with our program participants and help them, and we give them the choice to accept what we offer, but we cannot force our offer. So this is a voluntary program. We cannot hold someone accountable if they don't want to take the program. So we accept those that agree to the program that comes with certain expectations, and there's consequences for not meeting these expectations. So obviously our frontline staff, the case managers, the shelter staff, that they attend client meetings right at the hotel units and in public places. They could be in our office. They make goals and the housing stability plan or personal goals plans with them and go over these goals and follow these goals. If there's issues happening, we certainly work with the hotel management. And further, when we do the permanent housing placement with the property managers to address the needs. Because as you can tell, it's a short-term project, right? 90 days in hotel, they'll turn lives around. But for some people, it takes a bit longer than 90 days. So continuation of services and connecting people to resources is critical, because just one single program just not going to eliminate homelessness. And we live in a kind of not always a just world with all the expectations that we have, that our expectation going to be met. But we do our best to provide the support and trust that we build with our clients. Our team has past experiences of homelessness on themselves, and then they got their bachelor's and master's degree, and now they work for this program helping others. So the connection and trust encourages participation and following the program expectations as well. But there's consequences, that's all I can say.
Okay, so we have the numbers here for the people who have found housing and the people who are on their way, but that doesn't tell me a rate of success. So how many people have been kicked out of the program? Can you tell me that? Two. Okay, and was it for having too many people in there? Was it because they weren't checked up on often enough? Are there enough people, are there enough caseworkers to check up on people? That is my concern, because if someone gets kicked out enough, if someone does damage to the hotels, if someone does something like that, not only does it hurt a business owner, for which I'm very sympathetic, but it also ruins this program for other people. And so I would think that you probably do have a real good handle on it. Give me a little more assurance on how that's going. How often are you checking up on people?
I'll share a little bit about this. I'm Natasha Lindsay. I'm a Shelter Services Program Manager. So one of the things that we do have our case managers do is actually go meet the client and look and make sure that the hotel room is up to, it's not creating any hazards, there's not any hoarding going on. And that way they're able to visibly see if there's any issues that they can address right away. Either with that. And I also encourage them to develop a really good rapport with their clients and check in at least weekly with each client to say, hey, how are you doing? What's up? What do you have your plans for? How can I help you? And try to meet those needs that way. And then they can always, add to their case plan or change it depending on what those needs are. But I think one of the key parts is developing the relationship with the clients and also the motel owners, so they also feel comfortable saying, hey, your client is acting up, please come deal with it. And then we can come deal with it and like nip it in the bud before it becomes a huge problem. And that is, and yeah, relationships is just a really key part of that relationship and trust.
And we talked about people having, set meetings with their case manager. What happens when they don't show up?
They get called again.
And how many times do they get grace? Because I understand some grace, but get your act together, so.
I think generally speaking, they will respond. And if they don't, the case manager of this project will actually go and show up at the hotel and knock on the door and say, hey, what's going on? You haven't responded to me. Do you need it from your phone? Is your phone out of minutes? Do you not have, how come you're not calling me? Because they do sign an agreement to check in weekly with their case manager when they enroll in this program. There is an agreement they sign. And so that sets out some clear expectations for them.
Cool, thank you for putting up with my
more
seemingly,
questions are great.
picky
If you wanna
questions,
know.
but these are the kinds of things that people will ask us and we need to have good answers. So I appreciate your feedback. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Councilmember Fisher?
Have you guys done motel voucher programs outside of Monroe? Just,
We run one other program
Okay.
with the city of Linwood.
okay,
There
so,
could be more that we don't run.
yeah, no, I was thinking of you personally.
Two, yeah,
Um,
Monroe and Linwood.
So we're in this saying 5 months? So what would you change to make it better? Like, what are some of the ideas? Because I had some concerns earlier. I think a week is too long to have somebody in a room without contact. I don't do that with my kids. I don't leave my kids in the room for a week without checking on them. And I think that they also need to have checkups more regularly to make sure that they're on schedule. That was one of my concerns when we approved this whole thing. Another one is that they can be in there for, was it 30 days or something before eviction? 90? So yeah, that was a huge thing for me too. And I'm wondering, like, I would just like to see that at like 10 days. I'm wondering if you are wanting improvements like that, if those things are hampering getting more people moved in, because we don't want to make the program go away, right? Because we want people to continue to get better. But I also want somebody sitting in there 90 days not doing anything, taking that spot for somebody that could go in there and become more healthy. So,
Yeah, no,
so a couple of questions. I had a couple of concerns, and then what would you also like to, what would you change to improve the program?
I do want to just mention that the 90 days is part of the Department of Commerce SGD guidelines.
Okay.
That's a programmatic.
So we can't
thing
get
that
around it.
It comes up higher.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Can't get around it with that funding.
No, so I just wanted to.
Okay,
speak
no,
to
perfect.
that.
Thank you.
It's a recommended duration of the program, 90 days. It doesn't mean if they out of compliance that we keep them 90
Okay.
days.
Okay.
But we will work on towards improvements. But we have 90 days. If it's really critical case, we can extend the program if needed.
Well, and I think extending the program, if they're in it and
If
moving
they
along, I
on
mean, if they're
track,
moving along at a
yes.
snail's pace, then fine.
Right.
Me
right.
personally, like that's totally okay.
We have
But
a-
if they completely drop out, that's where I'm like, let's
We
get
have a
something in here.
family that reached the 91 day today, and they applied for apartments. We're waiting landlord's approval. So definitely we're not gonna end the program when they so
yeah.
close.
No, that would be cruel
About-
and unusual to kick them out at 90 when you're so close on day 91 like that.
For the improvements, I want to speak a bit about the improvements. Yes, we learned out of this program for the last 4 months that we've been running it, a lot. We learned from the clients, from hotel management, from other providers, from those that we partnering with other services. And certainly the biggest change this new fiscal year, we got a program, we'll be focusing only on City of Monroe residents. So this project was for the rural area of East County. This next year, we're gonna shrink the program to the City of Monroe residents and focusing on closer partnership with the City of Monroe hotels. So it will be for local communities, not gonna be spread more around. So the people have more attention, our frontline staff will be more reachable, more attentive with keeping the meetings and monitoring the cases and supporting the clients with their needs. So that's the one change that's coming with the next fiscal year that already we're in July. For other improvements, we connecting our frontline staff to services like trainings to make sure they equipped with the knowledge and education what we see, because all clients different. Upon the program enrollment, we learn more about the needs of the clients. So along with that, we see what kind of needs our case management have to fulfill the needs of the clients, to be better equipped with the tools and skills to address those needs. And what it could be battling with the addiction, it could be mental health support. So we want to make sure our frontline staff has all the knowledge and being trauma informed. I've been working many years on the housing field and started as a frontline provider. And I still remember all my clients with the stories, not to say 100% will be successful, but it does matter when you build a trust with the client and the client opens up. And then you feel it, the connection, and they feel it. And there's more success. Our goal is to equip our team members with all the knowledge and support that they need from our admin and management level, so they can pass the knowledge and passion and support to those that they serve.
Okay, so if we are going to just be providing this for Monroe residents, does the funding amount stay the same?
Yeah, the funding amount will stay the same, but it will cover not just 6 months, it will be spread out over a year.
So that was in our agenda, right? That was
Yeah.
gonna be one of my questions. Okay.
The contract is going to be coming back to you on July 23rd. So this was really just the opportunity to discuss the first round of funding and the outcomes and results from that. So this will come back to you with some more detailed information. Some of the other changes that are going to come from focusing in on Monroe specifically is going to, and having the funding spread out over a year, is going to also decrease the amount of clients that are allowed into the program. So they'll have more individualized attention from case management.
So what's gonna happen to East Valley folks that are homeless? Is there gonna be a program up there as well, or?
We are, the city of Monroe is the only city in East County that applied for and was awarded these funds.
Okay, so Sultan Gold Bar. So for instance, Maria would not have success next
Correct.
year with us.
Yeah, in this next iteration of funding, that would not be an eligible participant in this program.
Okay, which I think is something important to think about.
It is. We had this conversation earlier today. Yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
One more thing I want to add, that we reworking our budget in a way to support less clients, but the more solid support for permanent housing search and helping with the moving costs. So when they end their stay in a hotel, we're developing a lot of partnerships with landlords to make sure they get approved for apartments, and we will help with the moving cost assistance as well. So that brings them closer and will be more comfortable for those that we serve to obtain a permanent housing, and making sure that they obtain employment, income increase, so they can keep the housing for, if not forever, for a long term.
Okay, thank you.
Ask a follow-up question to something Councilmember Fisher asked. So how do you determine somebody's residency if they're unhoused?
So we get our referrals from community partners. And in the referral form that we do have a question in there asking what city has this person been staying in for the past 30 days? So that gives us an idea of this is their location, this is where they've been. And so that way we're more able to zone in.
Also, we get referrals from local providers, like we will work with the Women's Gospel Mission, for example, and with the intake form that also shows the last permanent residents. People move around when they lose housing, but there might be someone who's sporadically staying in a different city, because we look what was the last permanent residence and where this person is residing as of now. And many of them, of course, like parked at the Walmart parking lot and what the city borders, but there's always history behind each case. And that's how we determine it. So they are Monroe community.
So if somebody's unhoused, living in the Monroe parking lot, and come from Sultan, that person would just stay there in the Monroe parking lot? Is that what would end up happening to that person because they're not a Monroe resident? They came from Sultan?
We can consider other factors, like if the kids go to Monroe School District and they may have healthcare connected to Monroe, which also matters, and someone might be have support system and relatives that they cannot stay with them, but they close by, so that's their community. And again, we check the history and we check the future plans. Are they planning to stay in Monroe? If they soon they moving out of state, so probably might be not the best choice for the program participation.
Thank you. Councilmember Walker?
Thank you guys for the amazing work you're doing. Like Councilmember Fulcher, I've got questions about the program, just in terms of logistics. How many hotel or motel partners have you guys been working with for the program? And are any of them outside of Monroe?
Yeah, we've been working with 8 different motels. We've developed partnership with them. 3 of those hotels are in Monroe and 1 is in Gold Bar of those 8. And then there's 3 more in Everett close by and 1 in Marysville. And one of the reasons that we are branching out into the Everett area or going to Marysville is because the lack of availability at the hotels that are willing to work with us here. So if they don't have rooms, where are we going to put someone?
Awesome. That was going to be my next question is, have there been any issues or has there been friction between some of these hotel or motel owners and VOA? Or not VOA in particular, but some of the folks that are staying there using vouchers.
Oh, you mean like have the motel owners had any concerns?
Yeah, one of my concerns originally with the program, and I'm in insurance, I always think of liability, was that how about if there is someone using a voucher to stay at a motel, they won't leave or they vandalize the place or something. I don't want the city to be the one bearing that responsibility, whether or not it's actual financial effects or just to be the person to point at that caused this to happen to a local motel. So have there been any issues like that that have came up? Any hotel or motel owners that have came forward to you guys and said, I don't want this going on, it's a problem?
Well, when some clients have been exited from the program due to choosing to behave in ways that aren't good for the motel owner, and the motel owner that will come and talk to us and we'll actually deal with the problem.
I want to clarify that there's no certain like a voucher for 90 days.
Right.
We pay daily or weekly, it's our choice, and the client can stay in a hotel while we're paying for the hotel. So there's more control of that. So it's not like they checking in and they for 30 days or 90 days, they all set. So, and that's why we do intensive case management and also check on people and check with the management of the hotel and extend the stay according to the circumstances.
Wonderful. All right, thank you guys very much.
Other questions? I do have one question. So success for you then is that the person has moved on to more stable housing. Okay. Do you, and to Councilmember Fulcher and other council members, and maybe I missed it because I'm kind of monitoring flags at the same time, but do you have a goal success rate, or do you have a success rate in like a percentage of people that are able to get housing through this?
So for our first contract award, we had a 5%, the expectation was given for 5% success of people moving into permanent supportive or more stable housing. In this next iteration of the contract, the expectation is increasing to 30% people moving into stable housing.
Okay, and what, do you have actuals on what it was? So if your goal was 5%, did you hit 3% or did
We
you hit
currently at 18% now,
18%,
even it was 5% expectation, and we didn't know next year will be 30%, but we exceeded the goal.
And so for people who don't for people who aren't part of that 18%, what happens to?
They still enrolled,
Oh, they're
and there's
still
still a chance for them to add to the good percentage, so.
Okay.
Only 2 exited with no success, three, okay.
Okay, and reminding myself that this has been a 5 or 6 month program.
Correct.
Okay, and so that's a rolling 90 days. So there may be complications in there that
Yeah.
define.
We enroll our first clients in April, so April, May, June, basically.
Okay.
And majority of clients got enrolled in May and June.
Okay, so they're not even at their 90 days yet.
Correct.
Okay, and about how long does it take somebody to get more stable housing out of that 18%? Is it a week? Is it a couple months?
It's more than week. Imagine someone who has eviction and might be destroyed rental history. So it takes more than 1 week, even for us to apply for apartment and get approval through the landlord screening. It takes more than 1 week. That's why we applied with multiple landlords. And we ran a big, huge eviction prevention program for Snohomish County and 211 under our department and rapid rehousing program. So we have a lot of resources, and through helping many community members through pandemic with eviction prevention, we developed great relationship with landlords. So that really helps. We distributed over 100 million just for eviction prevention during pandemic. So the landlords know us. We are good friends, and that helps us with obtaining housing for program participants.
All right, thank you very much. Before we move on to the next topic, I know I asked a couple other questions. If that created more questions in your heads, does anybody want to follow up on the questions that I just asked? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. To Councilmember Scarborough's point, 18% of the, you said sea dollars? Starfish. I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't say yen or something. I'm just, I don't know. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, because every person you help is somebody else that, it means a lot. It gets people out of the cycle of where they are right now. It helps bring families back together again. And to me, it's the right and moral thing to do. So I look forward to hearing another update hearing those numbers come up and everything. I appreciate, coming forward with a proposal for the council to consider at a higher rate and everything, and thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. All right, next item on the report, our council member agendas. Okay, so next item on the agenda is council member reports. This is item number 6. We're gonna go ahead and start down on the end. Council member Fisher, go ahead. Clap twice, it'd be so much easier. Push and hold. Ask Councilmember Walker to turn on his mic. Okay.
Android guy. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it. Thank you. We would have been here till after 10. Don't have a whole lot to report. I feel like we need to talk about the attempted assassination on former President Trump. So my whole thing with this, it's incredibly disappointing, and I feel that we differ so many times up here on opinion, and we still respect each other. We still like each other. We still have arguments. We have disagreements. We stay civil. I hate the direction that our country is going in right now. I'm not a Trump supporter, and I'm not a Biden supporter. I'm just talking about our country and how we go about politics right now. I would just want everybody to just be nice. It's very simple. I am very proud of our council up here going through a bunch of different things that every single one of us has a different opinion on. And there's never been a screaming match up here. There's never been any threats up here. And I love the example that we are setting for our community, and anybody else who wants to watch us on YouTube. But truly, it's just really disappointing to have things like this happen. It's upsetting, and I wish that we would just get back to civility. If it was up to me, I would probably close down social media. I think it's a horrible thing for our country. People get on there and say really, really mean things. And I just like this face-to-face talk, and I think people need to get back to that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Walker.
That was really well said. I think we are so lucky and blessed to be, or I feel to be a part of this council, because I think a situation like that, an assassination attempt, is indicative of that big issue that politics have led to humans becoming so desensitized of the humanity of others that we've started to get this idea that someone loses their humanity because we don't agree with their politics. And I hope that we never, ever lose that dynamic in this city government, where you start to see the other elected as something less or less human than you, because their politics, their policy approaches are different than your own. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Since the last meeting, not much new to report. I was going to say, I saw that the next P3 meeting was canceled. I was hoping to ask about something kind of off topic, but I would love to hear any kind of presentation from Public Works at the next P3 meeting about EMP resilience. Not to sound like a tinfoil hat wearing person, but I think it would be, considering our role with emergency management for the city, I think it'd be a prudent thing to look into. Yeah.
Thank you
That's all
very
I got.
much.
Thanks.
Councilmember Beaumont.
That was an interesting way to lead off, Councilmember Fisher. I like it. I agree. I think most of you know that I've got a big sign at my house that says, not forward, not right, not left, forward. And I really believe in that. And I love what I think it's Jared Mead and Nate Nearing are doing, which is their building bridges effort to try and bridge the gap here. It doesn't matter if you're Trump, it doesn't matter if you're Biden. We need to roll up our sleeves and get to it and quit pointing fingers and just get along. So I totally agree with everything that's being said up here and fully support that. I've been to the farmers market a couple times and it's a really great event and it is community. And I look around and the city had a tent there and Administrator Knight was there and Leah McCorkle was there and they did a really great job of engaging the public in the things that we're doing, and that was really exciting. But, you know, we're talking about building community and, you know, breaking down these barriers of, you know, you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're whatever. I think that the things that we're doing in this city are really helpful. The night, you know, music in the park. You know, we sponsor a lot of events. We have a lot of sports events going on. We've got, we've got, what's coming up? Yes, wakeboarding. Just the farmers market every week. I mean, you see all ages, all people. It's wonderful that we bring people together and face-to-face communication, super important. I agree. Get off social media. I fully support what Councilmember Fisher is saying about social media. I think it has just really been detrimental to our society and especially to our kids. So maybe if we just keep talking about it, making it a priority, we can make some inroads. But thank you for the comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Fulcher.
You guys are great. Okay. A couple notes about the market. A few weeks ago, the police department had things set up, you know, like with your measurements behind you so you could do your own mugshot. Clever. Did take my daughter's picture there just in case, you know, gotta be ready. And also, speaking of that, I was really disappointed to hear the damage to the park bathrooms. That was just senseless and annoying. And we have little flags by the crosswalks in front of my store, and someone just took them all and took them on a walk, and then those they didn't, they ripped them up. So I have a couple pieces for you, Jacob. I did bring them. I do agree with you guys. I think that we can't just go by without talking about the assassination attempt. That is a big, fat, hairy deal. And we need to stand up and just be civil to one another and to people all around us. And on that note, Fisher Walker 24.
Thank you. Councilmember Gamble. You know, you're not Gamble. I'm looking at your sign right there. Councilmember Scarborough Gamble.
Concur. Social media is not, of course, I'm not on it, so, and probably not for the right reason, just because I can't figure it out, I guess. Or I don't care to figure it out. But there's one more aspect of the not getting along, and to me, it's tearing families apart. When it tears the family apart, it's even worse than not getting along with your neighbor. So I've often said that we as a nation had better fix it or we're doomed. That's all I can say about it. We'd better fix it or we are doomed.
Thank you. All right. Mayor and administrative reports. Going to go ahead and start with the city administrator report, extended agenda.
Turn on my microphone.
Clap twice.
Looking ahead to July 23rd, the P3 committee, as previously mentioned, has been canceled for that meeting. For the regular business meeting, a number of items. We have the regular accounts payable, the meeting minutes, and then coming back for the council's consideration for second reading is the ordinance extending the downtown permit fee waiver program. I'll be bringing back the Kroger opioid settlement, acceptance of the ARTG grant funds, that's community outreach teams, and the interlocal agency agreement for the fair traffic control the scope of services change for Take the Next Step, and then a scope of services change for MFR Consulting. Under unfinished business, we have the resolution for the levy lid lift on the November ballot. Under new business, we have the emergency housing voucher funding program, and then department reports. Looking ahead then to the special meeting on July 30th, note again that that starts at 5:30. I think you have in front of you, and I'll be asking you to fill out your menu selections. Thank you so much. Our clerk thanks you too. We will have 3 items on that agenda. The multi-residential mixed-use housing developers will be coming in to share some background information about themselves, the types of developments that they do, and the types of funding that are needed in order to support those development. The branding update, and then finally the 2044 draft economic development chapter.
Thank you. Any questions on the extended agenda? Okay. City Administrator report proper.
Great. So a reminder to council, we had a news flash that went out today, just letting everyone in the community know that we will be doing a ribbon cutting for our brand new dedicated pickleball courts at Sky River Park. And that is scheduled for July 23rd at 4 p.m. If you could let our clerk know if you plan to attend so she could do it. Did you? Excellent. Thank you so much. We already talked about the July 30th special meeting. We also have a reminder for council to complete their forms and return them to the clerk by July 30th for the Monroe Fair Days Parade and the Parade Appreciation Dinner. I know everybody enjoys those. I know Janelle is wanting to try and ensure that everybody has what they need for the parade itself. And then finally, kudos, our Public Works Operations staff, Josh, Dane, and Scott had to respond in the wee hours of the morning on July 5th for water and mud pouring into a house on North Madison Street. So they obviously went above and beyond to minimize property damage. They were able to repair the line and get everybody's water restored. And just want to give a shout out to that crew for the work that they do. And it's important that we try and minimize that water damage because that ends up affecting then our risk and our insurance rates. So it's really important that we have a Cracker Jack team out there, which we do.
Thank you, Councilmember Fisher. You should just leave it on.
There we got her.
Just leave it on. We'll put a Dixie cup over it and just leave it on.
Just keep going. I shut you out. I don't know. I didn't hear that actually. Sorry. I know the people that live where the water main broke, and they had a lot of kudos also. They were extremely impressed with how quick everybody got out there, how quick it was cleaned up, how awesome they were with helping. So I was going to actually bring that up as one of my kudos too, but I forgot. So thanks for reminding me. So yeah, they had nothing but great things to say.
All right, thank you. Anything else for Administrator Knight? All right. Mayor's report. I'll start.
I want to continue to share pictures if you don't get an opportunity to drive by the city hall facility. The change is happening rapidly at this point. So still hopeful that we'll be able to have the construction team on the interior of the building by the time the rainy season starts.
Thank you. All right, so just to revisit what the council has already discussed, I think this is something that's been bothering each and every one of us for some time now. I strongly feel that we have entities in our country that are just using us for marketing, whether it's social media, political parties. I heard one elected official, I think it was Sunday, yeah, today's Tuesday, on Sunday morning say what I said over 10 years ago when I was running for office, which is that governance should be boring. We should be talking about potholes. We should be talking about sewer lines. We should be talking about police. We should be talking about all sorts of really boring policy things. We should be looking at commas and semicolons and policy decisions. And, you know, whether you're a comedian on late night television or you're some 24-hour news thing or you're social media or you're a political party, they're all making money off of us hating one another. It's why I have a hard time declaring a party one way or another. They amp us up to a point where we engage, and we engage over things that are hateful, that are angry, and the things that we should be engaging over, compassion, love. Those are the things where we should be meeting one another. And the assassination attempt of the former President Trump this weekend, horrific. It is just one major point in the hate, the support for violence that we've been hearing building up in our country. And I'm 53. I've lived through a time of relative peace where there were issues with whether or not a Supreme Court justice smoked pot and not getting to be a Supreme Court justice because they smoked pot. And when a former president had an affair with an intern and the things around that. I mean, today, the behavior of our elected officials, the behavior of our political parties, the behavior of our institutions, it's just deplorable all the way around. And I encourage every one of you coming to get me, see they're listening. Let Zuckerberg know I'll be right there. The thing that I'm going to encourage is this, is that I strongly feel that we're living in a shadow that each one of us needs to break through because we're doing things right here. We're doing things that are boring to the average person. And I appreciate the questions you asked of the human services people here tonight. I want you to know the answers to those questions. I want you to not, this is my concern, is I don't want you to be listening to social media and just accepting what you're reading there. This is what I want. I want a council that's engaged, that's going to ask the questions. It's going to cause me to think, oh, I have some questions too, and I'm going to ask those questions, right? That's what we should be doing here. We shouldn't be just looking at sort of these identity politics and what we're seeing in social media and things like that. So you set the tone here, but you got to go farther with it, okay? Because we have people in their 60s and 70s and 80s all around the world that are governing our world in an old paradigm. I'm not looking at you, Councilmember Scarborough, you're new to this. Each and every one of you really needs to find somebody out there to mentor, somebody that's younger than you, somebody that's your own age. I mean, for crying out loud, Councilmember Scarborough is different because you're new to this. But most all of us are still younger, and we need to be encouraging people to run for office, that it's not going to be about party, it's going to be about people. And it's not going to be about making money for your political campaign. It's going to be about going out and doing the hard work and meeting one another, asking questions and listening, because that's where it is that we become effective elected officials and effective representatives for our community. So in the time that I've served here, I have been working alongside public servants, and I so greatly appreciate that because I've served on a council previously where that was not the case. So thank you, each and every one of you, and to the staff that listens to me and that allows me to ask those deep questions and everything. Thank you. And thank you for being objective and providing accurate information to our staff to our council, so they can make good decisions. So those 50 stars, they're in blue, and that represents freedom. Individual stars, yes, but all together, and that's where we should be striving. So thank you all. Okay, with that, my mayor's report, I may have been abroad for 2.5 weeks, and I may be uncertain as to what time of day it is right now, or what currency I should use to pay for anything. But while I was gone, I did work on emails, so I think I stayed up on everything. We had a couple code compliance things that every once in a while code compliance becomes a thing. And we had a couple code compliance things that kind of arose while I was gone. There was one interaction that I kept getting copied in. I probably still am getting copied in, but just letting you know that staff is continuing to work on a few issues that I did continue to be engaged with while I was abroad. I do appreciate everything that everybody has done while I was gone. I appreciate Councilmember Hanford for pro-temping the meeting last week. Thank you. Yeah, a lot's happened in the last couple of weeks that I'm now catching up with staff because I'm in the same time zone. And I do appreciate Deborah answering the phone. I have no idea what time I called you, but it was sunlight on my side of the globe. So thank you for picking up the phone when I had a question on something. Laura's like, do you know what time it is over there? I said, no, I really don't. So thanks for answering the phone.
I had the same question. What time is it over there?
I know, right? Yeah, so for the next couple of weeks, we're just going to be working on some things. I know that there was a Supreme Court decision that occurred a couple weeks ago. We're getting some information on that. We'll be bringing forward some information to the council in an appropriate session in the upcoming couple or so weeks. We're working on some other things too that you'll see. So, Councilmember Scarborough?
Jody, do we need to check with Janelle about the car signs? Yeah. I put them all in a box, a flat box, but you got them?
I spoke with her at the farmer's market several days ago. She thinks you have that.
Somewhere there's a box about that tall and that size of those banners with them all in it in the string.
And Councilmember Scarborough, you're missing one. I have mine at home. All right. That's been here. All right, so we do have still items on the agenda tonight. I have one thing that I am going to be doing here. I don't know how many other people have done this. I feel like Councilmember Fulcher, are you AWC? Not yet, okay. Okay, no, that's what I said, not yet. So I think it was last year, I earned my advanced AWC certificate of municipal leadership. I encourage each one of you to get at least your municipal leadership certificate. It's a great way to make certain that you're doing the training and everything and getting to know your other fellow elected officials. Councilmember Walker earned his. And so Councilmember Walker, it's my pleasure to present this to you. We'd like to take a picture so we can put it in the mayor's newsletter at the end of this week. And so, you coming up here? Council, why don't you come? I do need somebody on this side.
Do we need to get any of this stuff out of the way, or can you avoid the water bottle and everything else?
Yeah.
Are we all, do we have this sideways thing?
Hold it? All right.
Handshake.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Hold hands.
And it gets awkward. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I got to talk too much.
Hey, I don't know if you want your envelope, but here's the envelope.
That's very nice. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You do want the envelope? Okay. You're welcome. Congratulations. Okay, one last thing that I just remembered. I also had a meeting today to go over with I think it's J-Way, with the branding stuff. Technical term, again, little grace with me tonight. And we'll be bringing forward the recommendations in, the end of July? July 30th?
July 30th.
Yeah, and I know Deborah mentioned that. I'm really pleased with the way things look. Hopefully you all are great with it too, and if not, we'll figure out what happens next. So looking forward to that. Also looking forward to changing things like logos here. So time for the 12 or so year, yeah. I don't know, time for a change. So, all right. Thank you again, everybody. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda. That's discussion item number 8. Again, 8.2 was removed. We're going to go with 8.1, 2024 Comprehensive Plan Update, Introduction to Draft Chapter 8, Capital Facilities, and Draft Chapter 9, Utilities, Introduction with Planning Manager Turtolo.
Thank you. Before I get started, I was taking note of all your comments and wanted to let you know planning and community development will be at the farmers market tomorrow. We will be continuing to request input for the comp plan goals, policies, land use, and I'm also going to put a little thing in there. The survey is still open. It is on Monroe2044.com. Please encourage your friends, yourselves, your neighbors to take it. We're going to close it out at the end of July. One other thing, you might be expecting Public Works Director Roberts up here, but we have divvied up the work. So when it comes to the chapters of the comp plan, I have taken the lead. He will be joining you later this evening for transportation. And then in August, all of the water, sewer, and stormwater plans that will be filling in more of this capital facilities chapter that I'm presenting tonight. So just like the previous first drafts that I have brought to you, you have a homework assignment. I am requesting that you do review the chapter and provide, do you like the homework assignments? All right. So if you can provide comments by July 24th, I would really appreciate it. And then just walking you through what's in your agenda, Bill. I'm going to say this over and over, you're going to get sick of it, but there's this layering process of regulations that our comp plan is based on. The first top level is the Growth Management Act, followed by the multi-county planning policies, which is Puget Sound Regional Council's Vision 2050. Below that is the countywide planning policies, and in your packet, I have laid out some of the items that we are trying to be consistent with or compliant with. This agenda bill is for both the capital facilities chapter and the utilities. In the current 2015 plan, they are one chapter, but it's complicated when we have to do annual updates to your capital facilities plan. You shouldn't be really changing your utilities element. So we have chosen to separate them once again, which is what they used to be in prior to the 2015 comp plan update. Both of these chapters, as you look through them, have the same structure. It includes an introduction, relationship to other planning documents, an inventory of existing facilities, services, the financing, which most of this is not in the capital facilities plan yet because it is still being drafted, which will be to you again in August. And then we end with the goals and policies. I did also want to note there's some pieces that are missing in here besides the big picture. We did decide this year we're going to include the Snohomish County Public Hospital District. It's actually identified as an essential public facility in our plan, but it's never been included with the background. Evergreen Health is the current provider for the hospital services and medical offices that our temporary city hall is in. The other one is updating the Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue information. It has not been updated since the name changed, and so I have been working with the district to get their information. The other one that is also missing right now is the Snohomish School District. When the city moved west along Roosevelt Road, we did we are now in their district, and so I'm working to incorporate that information as well. I also wanted to let you know the layout is a new thing. This is what we're working towards for what the document will look like. I did want to let you know our planning commissioner saw this last Monday, and they made the comment, if the city is working on a new brand, which is really more blue tone, could we change out the purple, which is the primary color? So I've already provided that comment to our consultant, depending on what happens at your meeting on July 30th. So they've already been notified. If possible, this plan will be around for at least 10 years. It'd be nice to be consistent with the direction of the city. I'm sorry, it's really warm in here.
I thought it was me, 'cause I didn't know what time it was.
It's really warm.
Yeah, that's true.
So is the capital facilities element is really light. There's a lot of pieces that are still being put into play, but you can get the feel of what it's going to look like. I did want to also just bring your attention to the end of it, the goals and policies. Policy number 8.1.2, it's not biannually, it's biennial. We have a 2-year budget, and so that was a typo that actually one of our commissioners also found. So that's, we're fixing that. And then this evening I had a question about policy 8.1.4, promote demand management and conservation of services and facilities prior to developing new facilities. So what this means is really looking at education programs. So when Public Works is out at pop-up events, they're always handing out the low flow shower heads. It would be education about when you should run your washing machine, because that demand on the system can be reduced. And so that's really what that policy is getting at. I know there's a little bit of confusion. Yes.
Councilmember Beaumont.
Thank you, Kate. You actually just hit on something that I flagged when I was going through this. And I understand that some of these terms are part of the report and the writing in their industry terms that most people understand. I did not understand what demand management meant. And so
okay.
I did flag that and wondered if for someone, and I had written ask Jacob about this, but I'm gonna ask you about it. To me, I thought promote demand management and the conservation of services and facilities, demand management, what does that mean? And so I started thinking about, I literally could not, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I could not figure out what that term meant. So I'm thinking that if possible, maybe we recast that sentence so that a layperson reading it would understand it by, manage demands on road systems, sewer and infrastructure to conserve services and facilities prior to developing new facilities. Something like that might be helpful. But it's interesting that you brought up demand management, because that's something I flagged that I didn't understand.
Yeah,
So-
being in the transit world, it's something that I live by, so it's jargon. We'll work on that definitely.
Okay, perfect. And then as you know, I've got more edits
Yes,
for you, but yeah, thank you. And I know you're doing so much work. Also wanted to ask you about CAC. I believe our last meeting is next week, correct?
It is on the 26th? It's the Thursday.
The Thursday. And then
Yes.
that's it for our committee.
That is correct.
Okay, perfect. And so we'll be talking about this there as well.
You will.
Okay,
And
great.
I am hoping to come back with the revised housing element that includes all of the pieces that we're still working on, so.
Okay,
We'll
great.
be coming back. And I would, since you asked me questions, I wanted to let you know, we will be at the senior center for lunch
Oh.
on the 26th, doing
Oh.
the Monroe 2044 exercise.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Oh,
Councilmember Fisher.
And, oh, God, I'm getting so good at that. Off subject, something I want to bring up. We were talking about demand and water and all of those things. Is there ever any consideration of using non-drinking water also
gray
into
water?
houses and new construction, gray water? I find it crazy that I water my yard, wash my car, and have a toilet full of drinking water. And why can't it just be gray water? I mean, we could cut our use down by a lot and not have that possibly going through wastewater treatment plant. I don't know how that works logistically, but I know, I don't know, maybe I'll start collecting rainwater in my own house. And by the way, you are one of the smartest people in the world, so.
So, Planning Manager Turtolo, would that be something that we could add to the utilities plan?
I was gonna say,
And-
want to kind of,
and
well, we talked about tag teaming and.
so we do want to, we do want to keep our responses sort of on the policy level. So the underlying question is this something that would be appropriate for the comp plan?
On the policy level, yes, this is something that's appropriate for the comp plan. It's also something that is a component of the utility system plans for our water system. Water reuse is actually, it may in fact be an entire chapter of the water system plan, as it were. We'd probably appropriately discuss it more in depth at that point in time. Just wanted to share that with you.
So more details in a lower level plan.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we will also touch on demand management later, well,
Tonight.
next, when we talk about transportation.
Or as we'll call it now, managing your use. how somebody manages their use.
Exactly.
Yes, okay, cool.
Are we able to manage the temperature in this room by any chance?
I think it's getting cooler now, but I don't know. Okay, any other questions? Because I know that we've still got some other items. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and then just really quickly, the utilities, I'm not going to go into it, but it really focuses on electricity. The one item that is not covered, under the Growth Management Act is the city has chosen historically to include solid waste. So there is information about Republic, which is our current provider. The chapter again is same layout. Just go through. If you have questions, please feel free to send me an email. I appreciate all edits, and I will close with that.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? All right. Very important work. Thank you very much. All right. And as stated previously, 8.2 is off the table for tonight. We are now going to do 8.3, which is the 2044 Comprehensive Plan Transportation Element Draft Chapter with Director Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I think I misspoke just a moment ago. I believe it's actually in the sewer system plan. We're doing like 4 of these things and they get a little jumbled in my head from time to time. My apologies. So with that in mind, Clerk Wyckoff, when Paul and Patrick have been pulled forward, I will go ahead and get started. Okay. Are they there?
Hello.
Perfect. Good evening. Hello.
Good evening. Good evening.
So short introduction here for the transportation plan. This is the draft version of the plan. We talked about this back in March when we were discussing specifically multimodal transportation, active transportation, transit, things of that nature, and bringing that to the council as that is a new requirement of GMA for this comprehensive plan update cycle. The purpose of tonight's presentation generally is to review the plan, which serves as the basis for the transportation element in the overall 2044 comp plan update. Specifically, we're going to look at the alignment of this plan with our land use element, which Kate was previously going to talk about. However, it's in your packet, so there's a connection there still without even the presentation. We're also going to talk about the update to the level of service standards. So that was the multimodal thing that we talked about back in March. We're going to revisit that. That includes an active transportation component this time around. So the multimodal includes the walkers, the bikers, the scooters, the whatever one wheels, whatever you're doing these days to get around that isn't a car, right? So it's vehicles and then active transportation are kind of the 2 different things. We're going to consider the projects that are coming up over the next 20-year plan period to meet the land use growth demand that's projected to come, I suppose. And then we're also going to discuss the financial strategies that can be used to accomplish these projects. So with us tonight, we have a couple of subject matter experts from Transpo. I will shortly turn it over to Patrick Lynch, who has hair like mine, and Paul Sharman, who has hair that I aspire to have. So that's how you can tell them apart there on the screen. Jody, if you would go to the next slide, please. And just in kind of speaking to this plan and frankly, everything we do in public works, imagine Monroe, community-centered infrastructure that is available to all. I think that really speaks to all of the public works disciplines that fall under our purview. So Patrick, Paul, please, I turn it over to you. Take it away. Patrick, you're on mute maybe? Paul, you're on mute maybe?
Okay, sorry. I had a little issue with my mic there. Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Next slide. So, good evening, council, city administrator, and mayor. So what we're going to kind of go over kind of some highlights of the plan with the time that we have here. So starting off with kind of what the foundational guidance that is kind of guiding the plan development. That's the State's Growth Management Act, and we'll go into a little more detail with that. The Puget Sound Regional Council, that's our region's regional planning agency, and their land use vision and transportation plan is a kind of a foundational guidance of our plan update. Snohomish County's countywide planning policies, as well as the city's own land use plan or a comprehensive plan. And, we call this a transportation plan, but it's really fundamentally grounded in the city's land use plan and land use forecast. And we'll get into a little more about that. Next slide. So we're going to cover just kind of like the highlights of this plan update, especially related to how these plans evolve over time. And so I like to think of them as kind of a evolution from one plan to the next, not really a complete overhaul, but really building on the good planning that we've already done and moving it forward. Some of the kind of the differences this time around as compared to other plan updates is there have been some kind of significant changes to the Growth Management Act as it relates to these comprehensive plans. One of those was House Bill 1181, which is related to the comprehensive plan, is focusing on measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, reduce vehicle miles traveled, and the establishment of multimodal level service standards. And so we discussed that a little bit before at a previous council meeting, but these multimodal level service standards are really a significant change in not only how we measure success of the plan, but the development of the project list that we'll go into a little more detail. One of the other kind of major changes from the previous plan is related to impact fees. And so although we're not presenting on impact fees tonight, this project list is significant in that ped and bike projects can now be included in our impact fee program, whereas previously just a small percentage of that cost could be included. So that's a significant change in how we can fund and implement the plan. And then we'll have a kind of an overview of that project list at a high level. Next slide. So really, with these plans, it's really, updating our forecast land use. Since the last plan update that was done pre-pandemic, it's really having a plan that reflects kind of the current world that we're living in post-COVID, and making sure that those transportation trends that have come out of the pandemic are, we're planning for those as we move forward. And that, that would be, e-commerce, telework, and how those things have changed travel patterns, and just how, the trips that land use is generating, how that's changed, not just here, within the city of Monroe, but really as a region. We'll talk about our new multimodal level service standard. We hit on that previously, and how we're now measuring vehicles from a corridor travel time basis, and then also including ped and bike travel through the completeness of those planned pedestrian and bicycle networks. And Paul will hit on that a little later. We'll have a kind of a general overview of the project list. We won't kind of go project by project, but we'll give you an idea of kind of what types of projects, where they're at, and we can answer questions on that later. And really, as we get into implementation, it's kind of understanding, what the priorities are in terms of our funding priorities. And so the plan kind of hopes to do that as well, as kind of balance the plan with available funding sources, and with the gaps in funding, what are strategies to fill those gaps. Next slide. So with our process, we start with looking at the existing conditions. What are the current operations of kind of all the modal networks, using the city's forecast land use. We've updated the travel model that forecasts trips and kind of, distributes them on a network, and then we analyze future conditions. And so that helps us understand how, future land use is related to future improvements needed to serve that growth, where we might need new signals, like turn pockets, additional lanes, that sort of thing, as well as the other modes. And so we've looked at kind of planned ped and bike networks and what facilities would be needed to accommodate all modes of transportation. We identify that in a updated project list, and then we summarize that in a document that includes all the goals and policies, our analysis of existing conditions, and all the forecast and operations work that goes with that. Next slide. I'm going to hand it off to Paul.
All right. Thanks, Patrick. So kind of one of the most important parts of the transportation element process is defining really the ultimate vision for the transportation network. So for vehicular travel, this map here shows the functional classification system of the city's street network. The goal is to create a well-connected hierarchical system of streets that enhances mobility and safety. So within Monroe, there are 5 functional classifications kind of listed top to bottom there on the left. The higher functional classifications tend to serve higher traffic volumes and have fewer access points and tend to have higher speeds. Lower classifications will have lower traffic volumes, more access points, and tend to have lower speeds. So this update here in 2024 adds the 5th adds a 5th designation of residential collectors to kind of define roadways that primarily serve residential traffic as a way to distinguish between other collectors. That'll become more important as the city updates its concurrency program based on the new kind of multimodal level service standards that we'll talk about in this transportation element update. Next slide. So for the pedestrian system map, we've kind of hinted at this a little bit. This is a new map in this transportation element update. It defines, the ultimate vision of what the pedestrian system would look like in the city. So the map on the right shows what that would look like. The map identifies a series of primary and secondary corridors, as well as, a series of local streets and trails that would support that network. The primary network is shown in dark blue. That's really kind of the backbone of the pedestrian system. It would offer the most direct connections to the majority of important community destinations. They're usually on arterials or collectors. It's often the most attractive route in terms of convenience and directness to community destinations. And then the secondary network would be shown in light blue. It's really kind of supportive of the primary network, often providing system continuity, by connecting segments of the primary network with on-street or off-street facilities. The secondary network sometimes offers a more comfortable route on a quieter street, although the route might not be as direct as on a primary network. And then there are a series of trails that support that network as well. So this map was presented as a draft back in March when we kind of did our introduction to multimodal level service. And has been updated based on some of the feedback we received during that meeting. Next slide. Again, this is very similar to the last map, but is kind of the ultimate vision of the bicycle system within Monroe. It again has a defined primary and secondary set of routes and an off-street network similar to the pedestrian network. The maps look similar to the pedestrian network, but has some key route differences to account for specific bicyclist needs. Compared to the pedestrian network. So it's slightly different compared to that one. Next slide. All right, so multimodal level service standard, we've touched on this a couple of times, kind of the big key update as part of the 2024 go round here. So again, we presented on some of these options back in March.
Sorry, if you could hold for a second.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Beaumont.
Thank you, Paul. I just wanted to, if you could go back a slide to the bike and pedestrian maps. I had a quick question regarding setting those up. This is, of course, our goal. But is there any way to show, for instance, with the pedestrian, existing sidewalks, is the idea to build sidewalks along, safe sidewalks along those routes, and then same with the bicycle routes. It would be helpful for me, just out of curiosity, to know how much of that map is already in existence and safe for peds and cyclists.
Absolutely. Stay tuned for about 5 minutes. We'll get you those maps.
Councilmember Fisher?
I have a quick question about some of the same stuff. Looking at the bike map here, just above the 203 Washington Head down there, that is a primary bike route. So that's also, I think it was a collector on the roads. Can you see the one at Powell Street or Sumac?
Yes.
Have we taken into consideration what we can change on those roads? So I live in that area right there. Probably not very good for pedestrians or bike routes until we make some street changes. And just making my point there, those are collectors off of 203 and a ton of volume during morning and evening hours. And yeah, I was just curious if we can talk a little bit about adjustment with the streets, maybe to then go along with bike and pedestrian safety.
Sure. Yeah, I do remember Powell specifically being a bit of a tricky one. It's important from a connectivity standpoint, and we have a set of draft projects that would address that. But yeah, there's more info on that in the plan as well.
Thank you. And Paul, just for clarification, and I stepped out momentarily, but the bicycle system map, I know that I had a conversation with staff about making certain that we showed multi-purpose trail connections that are going outside of Monroe. For example, one heading roughly parallel down 203 to the city of Duval to connect up with Palmy Valley Trail, and also one headed generally northwest bound, generally kind of sort of parallel to Highway 2 to connect up with the Centennial Trail within the city of Snohomish. As those are multi-purpose trails, should those be also on this bicycle system map?
They probably should be. These are, we're just showing within the city. Sorry, was that you, Jacob?
Director Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. To speak to that specifically, the next item on the agenda is going to be the Trails Master Plan, which will address those types of connections. So our focus here was on the city of Monroe proper and not the extension. However, that is to say, Mayor, if the council would like us to include that, we certainly could. There'd be no harm in it. It wasn't the focus of this component of the project.
I would respectfully request, just out of the abundance of caution, since they're multi-purpose, which includes bicycle, running, et cetera, that just basically adding an arrow on here that's consistent with the trails map would be something that I would like. So, okay, thumbs up. So Paul and Director Roberts and company, if those could be added, I would, the council and I would appreciate that. Thank you. Councilmember Roberts, do you have anything further?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, and then I was going to go with Director Paul. So Paul, you've got the floor again. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we can absolutely make sure those updates get incorporated. All right. So for the multimodal level of service standards, again, we had a presentation back in March, I believe, talking about the different options that were available. The city has decided to update its vehicular level service standard to be based on roadway speeds instead of just intersection operations, and has added in the new active transportation requirement of degree of network completion for both the pedestrian and bicycle network. So the active transportation level service will be graded on a green, orange, red scale. Green is everything's built up to standard, orange is acceptable but not quite to standard, and red is no facility is present. The vehicular level service will still maintain the letter grade A through F. I do want to quickly note that it kind of unfortunately draws comparisons with the letter grades from school. I think we might have touched on this last time. But a roadway is technically at level service E when it reaches its design volume. So having a level of service standard as C or D is not necessarily a bad or a low score, just something to be aware of. Next slide. Okay, so this slide shows the level of growth the city is planning for between now and 2044. You know, Patrick noted, I think, that the transportation element is really a reflection of the land use element, and the projects and transportation system improvements that are required are really based on that level of growth. So the forecast numbers that are included in the land use element show an approximate 36% growth in housing units, 24% growth in population, and about a 23% growth in jobs. And these numbers are inclusive of both Monroe and its urban growth area. And then given these levels of growth, we build a traffic model that translates this planned land use into traffic volumes. And our forecasts show that this growth plus regional growth will account for an approximate 38% in trips taken during the PM peak period, kind of the afternoon commute time in the city. This does not mean that traffic volumes go up 38% across all roadways, but the total number of trips taken go up by 38%. Next slide. So using the city's new vehicular level service standard, we measured existing PM peak hour roadway travel speeds and report the existing level of service as shown on the map on the left. The color scale represents the different level of service there. So you can see lots of green, a little bit of yellow and orange. So the data shows that all corridors currently meet or exceed their level of service standard. And then given those traffic forecasts that I mentioned on the last slide, we forecast out the 2044 roadway speeds and corresponding level of service, assuming no capital improvements between now and 2044. And these forecasts tell us that US 2 is expected to grade to level service F during the PM peak hour. And many other roadway corridors are expected to see speed decreases, but no others are anticipated to drop below their level of service standard. Next slide. And then for the pedestrian system, this hopefully answers the question we had earlier. So we're measuring here the presence of existing pedestrian facilities against that planned pedestrian system map here. So the level service green means that pedestrian facilities are built according to the plan, while an orange would indicate that some facility exists, but it's not up to the city's design standards or not in alignment with what's outlined in the pedestrian system plan. And then a red would mean no facilities exist. And the new multimodal level service program requires mitigation for all failing facilities as part of the capital project list, which we'll show here in a few slides. And then Patrick mentioned this earlier, but additionally, we'll be updating the impact fee calculations and concurrency mitigation based on these new level service standards. And so, some of these projects will eventually end up on the 6-year transportation improvement program list. Next slide. And then similar info here for the bicycle level of service. Again, measuring the existing bike network against the planned bicycle system we showed back in slide 9. Level service green indicates that facilities match the planned network, while red means that no facilities exist. Again, the facilities failing bicycle level service standard will need to be mitigated as part of the capital project list and will be included in the calculation of impact fees and concurrency and eventually end up on the 6-year TIP.
Thank you. Jacob.
That works. It's the common name. Thank you, Mayor. The designated routes there on US 2 that you see, which are not under the city control specifically, are on there so that when the state comes through and decides to do certain upgrades to US 2, the city has some negotiating leverage in order to help to facilitate building out those facilities in that state right of way. So just kind of giving the council an insight into the why. It's not necessarily that those are going to become primary bike routes. It's more about ensuring that we plan for the future and are positioned appropriately when those projects do kick off in order to facilitate better bicycle or active transportation in the area. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions at this point? Otherwise, we're going to give it back over to Paul. Okay, Paul, you've got the floor again.
Right. Thanks, Jacob. That's a very good point to make. Next slide. Okay, so this slide shows the total required projects to mitigate all the forecast level service deficiencies across the city. So the projects are color coded by type. Green projects here are sidewalk construction projects. Blue are installation of bike lanes or bike facilities, and red segments are where we would recommend multi-use paths. And then the various red circles indicate kind of a range of intersection improvements. Note the many that show up on US 2 required to improve that level of service deficiency we identified a few slides ago. Some of these projects are already included in long-term transportation planning project lists and on the 6-year TIP. But the project list creation also includes the development of planning level cost estimates that the city can use for budgeting purposes here, which we'll talk about on the next slide. So this slide includes the breakdown of quantity and cost of all these improvements required to mitigate all level service deficiencies across each of the modes. As previously noted with the recent GMA requirements, these active transportation improvements are required as part of the long range planning improvements and will be included with the update of the transportation impact fees. As you can see here with the table, the most common project type was sidewalk construction with 17 total projects, followed by multi-use path with 11 projects. And then total project costs are also listed kind of by category in the rightmost column, with the total cost to build out the entire network identified at just over $99 million. Next slide. So finally, we're showing here a table on the right that breaks down both the capital and maintenance costs estimated to build and maintain the transportation system that's envisioned in this plan. So as part of this, financial assessment, we review the city's most recent transportation expenses and revenues to kind of determine expected or average revenues over the next 20-year planning period. So the table shows that assuming current trends continue, that we're showing an estimated shortfall of approximately 43 million needed to build out all the improvements identified in the plan. And then we're also showing just under a $1 million shortfall in maintenance costs over the life of the plan. So there are a number of methods of addressing these expected revenue shortfalls. It could be anything from additional grant funding awards, tax increment financing, some voter approved bond or tax packages, or local improvement districts. Most likely some of these projects will need to be delayed as the cost to build out the system is well above the expected city budget. So while the plan, sets out the 20-year long-term project list, these projects, kind of make their way down onto the 6-year TIP list when the project needs arise, and then the city's budget is reconciled against those shorter-term 6-year project lists. All right.
All right.
Any questions?
Do you have anything further to add, Director Roberts?
No.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilmember Fisher.
Just one. The pedestrian stuff, did we include, I didn't see it up there, I don't remember seeing it, the alleys downtown, and is that appropriate, like on Main Street? Is that an appropriate thing or not for this?
Director Roberts?
I know we've talked about
Public
it
alleys.
in public safety with lighting and usability and all of those things.
Yes, so the majority of this plan is focused on primary and secondary routes, and those alleys would not qualify as either of those. It is not to say that they couldn't be in the capital facilities plan or the transportation
More
improvement plan.
third-array or fourth-array?
Sure.
Okay.
If that's a word, yes.
Okay. Councilmember Beaumont, you'd be the secondary.
Thank you. Oh, my. Thank you very much. I have one quick question, and that is, in this report, and as we're looking toward the future, with the increase in population, traffic, et cetera, are we considering expanding or changing approved truck routes in the city? And when were those established? Because there's what, about 11 of them?
I don't want to answer wrong.
That's okay.
You're probably correct,
That's
because
okay.
according to the other council members, you're fairly intelligent, so I'll give you that.
I would like to think so.
Yeah.
I really do have a college education.
So can you say that question again? I was
Yes.
kind of thinking while you were
So in the report, it identifies our truck routes, current truck routes. And I know there's been a lot of question about some of them that on Sumac and you know, trucks driving from 203 shortcutting. And I'm curious if we're looking toward the future, if we are going to expand or think about reducing some, adding some, if that's just part of the conversation, is looking at truck routes within the city.
Thank you. I understand better now. The plan generally looks at freight routes throughout the city, which is actually a function of commerce and set by the Washington State Department of Transportation, I believe. Anyway, so it looks at freight routes, which are more general and they're statewide. We have 5 T1 through 5, I think it is, listed in the plan. Staff actually requested that the truck route make it in the plan so that we could differentiate the two. So to say, is this plan actually going to address changing truck routes or looking at new opportunities for truck routes? No, that is certainly something that with mayor and administrator's direction, we could start to look into as a future project that's separate of this plan.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Any other questions from the council? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Transpo Group and Director Roberts.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and move on to the next item, and I do note time right now is 21:37, so we've got about 23 minutes to having to do an extension. And with that, Deputy Director Swanson? Yes. Okay, good, all right. We need to get badges and little marks on here for everybody, make my life easier. All right.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Before I introduce David and Connie, just a quick background on the Trails Master Plan. So this was actually came out of the PROS plan. It was one of our either highest, I think it was our highest ranking feedback when we were developing the PROS plan on the need for additional trails networks. And so we had actually planned on doing this before we even knew about the new multimodal requirement from the Growth Management Act. And so we had set aside funding for it. We were getting ready to roll it out, learned of this. And so then we kind of slowed our roll on it to match up with the transportation plan. And so throughout this entire process, both our consultants, David and Connie, were on the screen, worked very heavily with Transpo and shared data. And so the two plans very much complement each other as far as the pedestrian multimodal routes. In this plan, you'll see when David gets into it or Connie gets into it, you'll see a more refined look at those routes. And Councilmember Beaumont, you had asked about, some kind of ground proofing, those kind of things. And this is what it does. It looks at those corridor widths and what we could accommodate within those corridors and the safest possible environment we can give those either bicyclists or pedestrians and those kind of things. And so I think that was it for the introduction. And do they have control? Oh, okay. Either way. Oh, okay. Yeah, David, Connie, we have it up here, so you can just say next slide if you'd like.
Yeah, that's fine. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Just a second here. I'm getting back to that Zoom window. Okay. Okay, yeah, great. Thanks, Ben, for that introduction. My name is David Saxon. I'm the project manager and with McLeod Record, and I'll let Connie introduce herself.
Connie Record, principal in charge.
Oh, okay, so if I click, it looks like it advances. That's good. So I will. We are going to, mostly me. I'm going to walk you through the Trails Master Plan, just hopefully in under 10 minutes. Basically, what I'll be explaining is the relationship. Yes.
For your awareness, we have control over what we can see in here. So if you're clicking and it's moving forward for you, it's not doing that here.
Oh.
So you'll want to say next slide. Go ahead.
Okay. Hang on. Let me make sure I'm on the right, because I should just, let me just, because I have it open too. All right. I think we're good. So yeah, so I will explain briefly the relationship of the Trails Master Plan to other plans. And we already heard some of that about, the relationship to the transportation element. A little bit about the process we went through, and then kind of highlight the key parts of the Trails Master Plan, and tell you what it does. Next. Yeah, so can we go back one slide? Yeah, okay, there we go. Sorry. So as you heard from the previous presentation, we worked pretty closely with Transpo and the transportation plan, and really tried to align what we were doing with what they were doing. They were a little bit out in front of us in the process. So, they would feed us their draft trail network, their pedestrian hierarchy and their bicycle plan. And we would make sure that our, what we were doing aligned with what they were showing in their maps. And which is kind of interesting because, it's a good reality check to make sure both of us are seeing the same things when we're analyzing the city and the transport, the existing and proposed networks. The way our plan differs, the way the Trails Master Plan differs, is that it shows additional projects that are outside of the public right of way and even outside of the city. This was mentioned before. The Highway 2 is technically WashDOT's purview, so we're showing trails there. We're also showing a few things that are not on city, not within the city limits, but are important trail connections to places within the city. The Trails Master Plan has more detail on facility types and project feasibility. We really spent a lot of time on the ground looking at different streets, different options, and trying to understand what types of facilities would work there. We also have a project list that includes much more detail and more projects. However, the primary and secondary multimodal routes from the transportation plan that Patrick and Paul talked about are prioritized in our list, mainly because they have to be, to align with the comp plan, according to the Growth Management Act. Next slide. So this was our schedule. We started back in the summer of 2023, did a bunch of community engagement, 2 open houses in 2023 and the spring of 2024, determine the trail network, have the community kind of reality check it, developed implementation strategies, and then where we are now is, of course, drafting and finalizing the plan. Next slide. This is how it's organized, pretty straightforward. The only thing I'll point out is that the key parts of this plan are the trail network and the project list. These are really, the trail network is really the key to this whole thing, a really important aspect of any, active transportation network is the connectivity, and the, does it serve the whole community? Next slide. So the goals, the PROS plan, as we know, went through a really rigorous goal setting process. There was no point in us, recreating the wheel, so to speak. So the goals for the Trails Master Plan are really lifted out of the PROS plan. A lot of them align, are exactly what we want the Trails plan to do. So safety, connectivity, equity is really important, and then health and community. And in turn, these are the criteria that we evaluate each project against when we prioritize projects. Next slide. So again, community engagement was pretty rigorous. We had 2 open houses. I know, Mayor Thomas and a number of you attended the open houses. I think we had over 200 participants, between all of the events that we had. In tandem with the open houses, we had online surveys that asked, very similar questions for those that couldn't make the open houses. And we had 11 really focused stakeholder interviews. Next slide. So this is a very important point that we'd like to make, and that is what makes trails comfortable and safe for people biking and walking. So for bicyclists, it's really important to point out that a large part of the population are not, competent, capable bicyclists. There's a huge percentage of the population, probably 2/3 of the population in most cities, that we call interested but concerned. And these are people that would bike if they felt safe and comfortable. The biggest factor in this is separation from car traffic on busy streets. That's the number one threat that type of cyclist perceives, and that's the number one reason that many of those people will not bike. So separation from car traffic. In the photo on the left, you see, I'm sure most of you have seen these in other cities. There's flex posts creating that separation from car traffic. The other option is to use streets that have very slow traffic and low volumes. And then another factor, is to make street crossings safe. And as I mentioned before, it's vital that the network be continuous, that there not be gaps where there's a high, stress level from traffic, that those sort of novice or interested but concerned cyclists have to get across. Next slide. So this is just an example. The plan contains a number of different trail types that illustrate that separation. So this is just a simple protected bike lane. It's a 5-foot wide bike lane with a 2-foot wide buffer with flex posts that help provide that comfort. And some examples on the right. Next slide. So in our process, we developed what's called a study network, and this is looking at all these potential routes and understanding what's possible, what type of facility. If there's high traffic volumes, you need more separation. If there's low traffic volumes, you can use the street and what we call a shared roadway or a bicycle boulevard. And as long as you make sure that that drivers can't speed down the street and have to go slowly. So we looked at what type of facility is needed to ensure that safety and comfort, what type of trail is likely to work. Our analysis is pretty high level. The next, once projects are selected, then we'll have to go back in and really take the measurements of the street and see what's actually possible. There are a lot of trade-offs when you're creating a bicycle network or bicycle facilities. Sometimes the street can be rechannelized and shave a few feet off the lane, to create that buffer. On Main Street, you have standard bike lanes. The volumes and speeds are pretty high, so we would say those aren't quite all ages and abilities facilities. And if you could narrow the lanes a little bit, you can squeeze a buffer in there and make them a much more viable facility for a much bigger population. So street rechannelization is possible, and then sometimes you can rearrange parking to provide bike lanes. Next slide. So the final trail network looks like this. Is just a simpler version of that study network, with the solid lines being existing trails and the dashed lines being proposed trails. So that's, again, this is the main product of that plan, of the Trails Master Plan. What it also does, that example I showed of the protected bike lane, it identifies trail standards, and then it defines manageable projects, and that's our project list. And then it prioritizes those projects based on the goals for the plan. You know, how does each project, you know, how well does each project meet each goal? And then it identifies funding sources and provides a bunch of other information on implementation and policies around like micromobility, bike parking, that kind of thing. Next slide. Right at 10 minutes.
Yeah, David, just to let you know, the council needs to do a motion to extend past 10. I don't know that we've got the stamina to do that tonight.
Okay.
So I would look at trying to wrap this up over the next 2 minutes so the council can have some time.
Yep, we're almost there. So so the plan has project sheets. This is just an example of a project sheet. We talk about the connections, the cost, the speed limit, and just the notes on what, you know, like what needs to be done, additional study, you know, what might be possible. Next slide. There we go.
Great, thank you very much, David. So council members, do you have any questions or comments? Councilmember Fisher, go ahead. It's okay, we're not doing a motion yet. Go ahead.
Okay. What was that orange line, the Snoqualmie Trail or something? Probably next slide back. I think it has it there. Yeah, the orange line is Tacoma River.
Yeah, so this question came up before about, you know, connecting to the regional trail system. So the two trails that will someday connect to the city of Monroe are this Snohomish River Trail coming in from Snohomish, and that you can barely see on the upper left hand of that plan. And then
I was just thinking one down there, it does not just go onto the trail that goes to Duval.
And then the Monroe to Snoqualmie Valley Trail that will connect to Duval. So that's just showing the county's preferred alignment.
So that they would rather have that than just go down 203 and not build 2 bridges and go through farmland? Just curious. It's because it seems really funny to me.
That follows the old railroad.
That could be a point to it also, but there's like that big V right there that's almost purple with the orange. Why wouldn't we just go down 203 and just connect it?
So
I was just thinking.
So I think one of the things that's important here is that these are sort of schematic.
Okay.
And I think these are based on rail right-of-ways that existed or still exist. So it could be that they end up doing something roughly in parallel.
You're spot on. They're trying to get over to their existing corridor that they already own.
Perfect.
Is why it jogs over there. And the two lines is one involves building a bridge over the river, which is obviously the more expensive, and the one uses the existing Lewis Street Bridge and then cuts over the.
Okay, that was my question. Perfect, thank you.
So details to be.
Yeah, it just looked super weird to me.
Yeah. Other questions, comments? All right. Anything further, Deputy Director Swanson?
Just email, call if you have any questions about the plan.
All right. All right, we have a need for a 5-hour executive session. I'm just kidding. We have nothing else on the agenda this evening. To the consultants that presented this evening, thank you for understanding on the time. For the staff that stayed here, thank you. We have no further business this evening unless there's objection. We are adjourned. We are adjourned.